Hello, my name is Sarah Llewellyn, and I have been a teacher for the Appoquinimink School District for 16 years. Several years ago, I created the camp Surviving the College Application Process to help students and parents through some of the nuances of applying to college. So this presentation here is all about the actual college application and the process of applying to different kinds of applications. The next presentation will be about the essay writing, personal essay, supplemental, etc. So the first kind of universal application, which means that multiple schools use the application to submit to them, is the Common App. And this application has over 900 colleges and universities using the platform, which means it's the most widely used universal application. And the way it's built is when you create an account with the Common App, you are creating a main application with all the background information, the courses, the activities, the personal essay. And then when you add your schools, each school has its own kind of smaller application to it. They might have specific questions to ask you about why you want to go there, like supplemental writing, your courses, etc. But when you hit submit, the main application goes out to all schools that you are applying to if you have selected them as part of your list. Okay, so the first step is the Common App is not also just an application process. This website has so many features that students can use. First, as an underclassman, you can actually create a practice account and then transfer it to a student account in which you are applying in your senior year. So you can get in there and kind of get to know the application beforehand. Now, it is good to know, though, first, that August 1st is the rollover date for the new application each year. So about a week before August 1st, which would be next week at this point, we're looking at probably a shutdown of a few days on the application in which they are rolling everything over. So if you have a current account and you go in there and you notice that the account is closed, don't fret. It will reopen on August 1st, and there might be some new features in there, but everything you have already created should have saved already. Okay, so you've created the account. If you create a practice account, there are many places you can play around in there. First, you can actually build your college list in the Common App and kind of take a look at what the schools require, GPA, testing, activities, etc. And you can also take a look at the personal essay well before you actually have to submit it. Now, they have shifted a little bit in the last few years, but not much since the big change about 10 years ago. So most of the essays should still remain usable. Even if you were to create it in your junior year, you should still be able to use it by the time you apply in your senior year. One of my favorite features about the Common App application is that they actually have virtual college fairs built into the platform for you. This can really help your application. When you are looking at applying to a school, you are telling them, like, I want to be there. I want to be at the school with you. And you have to show them, how do you want to be there? And you can do that by more than just actually applying. You do that by demonstrating all the things about the school that you enjoy. Now, if you don't get to do the supplemental writing where you answer the question, why us? So why UD? Why Towson? If you don't get that opportunity to do that, then going to a college fair in which you possibly might meet an alumni of the school who might do an interview, or going to an actual tour of the school is a great option to show them that you really want to be there. Now, not everyone gets to actually go tour a school. So it is possible that a college fair might be your only option, or a tour of their online website might be your only option. So use those to your advantage. If you can go to a tour, definitely do that. But a college fairs in person or online might offer you the opportunity to meet somebody from the school, they can answer questions for you, or you actually might be able to interview and they would jot down your information and put that in as part of your application. Okay. And then the last thing I want you to know about the Common App in terms of like the different features from the other applications is that some of the colleges are actually free. The waivers are, or the fees are free. You just have to kind of know how to look for it. So if the application does not come up as a free waiver when you're in the Common App, if you visit the NACAC's website on fee waivers that I have linked here, you can actually fill out something to help you get the fees covered. Now, you're an Appoquinimink School District student, so in the month of October for Delaware, all Delaware schools actually have a fee waiver when you apply. It looks like this year that fee waiver might be opening earlier, so you might actually be able to access that earlier if you are trying to apply early action or early decision. All right, now, as I transition to this next platform, I'm going to go over some differences between the Common App and Coalition. And so you'll see how the kind of applications will pair up with each other. So the first step is, I explained Common App is the most widely used platform for applications. Coalition is much smaller. In fact, Coalition is only a few years old at this point and has only about maybe 150 colleges and universities using it. Primarily Southern schools, from what I have seen, are using this platform, but also some in the Midwest. Interestingly enough for us, University of Delaware actually uses both Common App and Coalition. And so since you are a Delaware student, I'm going to kind of use that as the example of, well, which one do I use? Okay, which one do I apply to using Coalition or Common App for University of Delaware if you happen to be applying to University of Delaware? So the first step is, obviously, what do we do if you use both? My easy answer for this is if primarily schools are using the Common App, use the Common App. So let's say you have 6 schools on your list. University of Delaware happens to use both applications, but the other 5 of your schools all use Common App, then go with Common App. It is going to be much easier for you. Now, if University of Delaware is your top choice, then you might want to switch to Coalition after I go over it today. Maybe it sounds more appealing to you, and so maybe you want to try it out for your application if it is your top school. But if it's not, and the rest of your schools are on Common App, that's the direction I would go. Okay, so you can see some words here. I'm going to go over a couple of different things in this application. And the first step is, when you're building out your main application, the activities list is one of the top things, like top 3 things that you're going to do to showcase who you are as a person. Okay, and really what that looks like is the trifecta. It will be your activities list, your personal essay, and your course list. Those things together are going to create who you are as a person, what you want to major in, what you want to do after college, who you are up until this point, right? And Coalition has some interesting features that can help you with that. Now, the activities list in Common App requires you to list at least 10 activities. Backtrack there. You can only list, max 10 activities. So you don't have to list 10. If you're only participated in 3 activities over the course of your high school career, that's okay. But the list gives you 10 abilities to kind of showcase who you are, and you have to prioritize that list. Now, the good thing about that, the pro about that, is that you get the 10 opportunities to show things that you've done. So that can include volunteerism, working, your sports, if you're participating in anything like that, activities, clubs, band, everything would fall under that. The downside is that you have to prioritize the list, meaning you have to kind of pick the one that's going to showcase who you are best at the top. And you now have to kind of figure out what order is everything going to go in, how do I explain all of these? And so it's just one more step in your application. Okay, but you do get the opportunity to list almost everything that might show up on your resume. Coalition only allows you to list 2. So you really have to prioritize. You have to say, okay, here's my Common App list. Here are the 2 that I chose are at the top of my list, the things I spent the most time on, possibly, the things that showcase who I am, what I want to do in the future. Maybe it was the things that had the biggest impact on your life and who you are at this point in time. So it might not even be something you spent 4 years on over the course of your high school career. Maybe it's something you just got into recently, but it shows a huge part of who you are and what's missing in your application, which I'll go over next. For Coalition, then now you're saying, okay, well, here are my top 2 on Common App. I'm going to transfer these 2 to Coalition. So you only get the 2 opportunities. However, it also just allows you to kind of minimize things, right? You prioritize the 2 activities and you're saying, okay, this is it. This is who I am. Now, in building your activities list, a few notes that I want you to keep in mind as you're applying. First, when you're building that list, don't do it first. You want to put in your courses first, your college work, so dual enrollment classes, articulated classes, AP classes. You want to put in honors and distinctions, any awards you've won, a part of any club you've been in terms of awards, or any academic award. You want to put in any academic interest that you have. So all aspects of who you are as a student, that goes first. Okay, that goes into your application first. Then I advocate that you choose your personal essay. Coalition and Common App have very many similarities. I'll go over that in the presentation on essay topics, but you'll see that with these two schools, when you select your personal essay, you're going to show another part of you. So here's your academic list, here's your essay, and this is what I want to say in my essay. And then you kind of come back to, okay, here are my activities. And why I would have you do that is your course list is really going to show something about you as an Appoquinimink School District for one primary reason. You have all at this point in time chosen a pathway. This pathway may have very big impact on what you're going to do in the future and what you're going to do after high school. And so that's going to showcase that part of you. Then you may have your personal essay in which you wrote about something very personal to you and who you are as a person. And then you need your activities list. What's missing? Who am I as a person? What's missing? And what is it that I want to showcase about myself still? So what I mean by that is this. Your course list is not going to include any sports you participated in. So now you have a choice. Do my sports go on my activities list as a top activity? Do they go in my personal essay? Well, the easy answer is they can go in both. But if you prioritize a sport in your personal essay, then you might want to prioritize something else at least at the top of the list on your activities list, especially if you're filling out coalition and you can only list two. Okay. In my senior year, I participated in both band and lacrosse. I had done that up until my senior year. And so I had both of those on my list. Okay, and my academic list would show you that I was in the K-12 pathway in my school. If it existed in that time, I was, for all intents and purposes, on the teacher track. So that did not come necessarily from lacrosse. That would have been showcased a little bit more in marching band as a leader on that. So I would have probably written about that in my personal essay and then prioritize lacrosse and my position in lacrosse first in my activities list, and then after that band. Okay, and in that way, you're kind of showing all sides of who you are to match up with the other parts of your application that maybe you are worried about, maybe you're not, like GPA, testing scores, whatnot. Okay, now, one thing I do want to make sure I don't forget to cover here is this. If you are an Appoquinimink School District student watching this, you are going to complete an immersion experience in your senior year that is your capstone project and WBL requirements. Don't neglect to include that on your activities list for Common App if you have the space to do so, on Coalition if you have the space to do so, or in one of your writings, okay? That's an experience that no one else in the state gets. You have an opportunity to go and do this experience related to your pathway, learn from industry partners in the field, and then you can use them as either references, letters of recommendation on your application, or within your application itself. So don't neglect to include that. You are more than welcome to do that. Even if you are currently working on it, it can still go in your application. Okay. Now, the next thing you might see here is the word the locker. The Common App does not have this feature. This is something that I really liked about Coalition. The locker is essentially a place where you can submit files, recordings, official documents. This is also where your letters of recommendation will go. And the thing I really enjoyed about this part of the application is not just the files and official documents. So there's anything you can kind of showcase your awards and whatnot, it's the recordings. If you enjoy screencasting, if you enjoy kind of talking versus writing, this is a space for you. The locker allows you to submit videos and talk directly to admissions about your application. And it's something that the Common App currently does not have as a feature. So I do enjoy this. So in my case, when I applied to University of Delaware, if I had the choice between Coalition and Common App, I might have chosen Coalition for the simple fact that I could create a video and kind of talk through things. So some suggested topics that I kind of jotted down that could be something useful for you to use in this if you choose to do a recording through Coalition might be what's on your to-do list. What are the next steps? What are you doing to achieve those goals moving forward? You know, not just applying to school, but what's your senior year look like? What's it look like after that? Think back over the last several years. How have you changed your community? This is an easy way to get in your capstone project. Did you volunteer for that immersion experience? Have you worked on other experiences leading up to it? You can absolutely talk about it here. If you're working on your college essay, but you haven't written it, maybe you talk about it instead. Okay, maybe you answer their question that way, or you talk about the process of creating the essay and then write it for them and submit both. How do you plan to use your passion to make a positive change in your community and in the world? The schools want to hear about how they're going to help you on your path to becoming who you're going to become. What are you going to gain from them and being a student there at their university? And how is that going to help you achieve your goals? You could talk about that point. And then who are you? What's most important to you? Talk about what shaped you, essentially. Maybe your personal essay is all about one topic, but a recording could be about who you are as a person, so they get to know you. They see that personality to come through. And then last, this one's actually my favorite one. Imagine yourself at this time next year. You're at the end of your freshman year at the university you want to go to. Describe what that looks like. What's this year look like for you? How did you get there? Okay, so that can be a fun thing to submit to them. So that's called the locker. You can submit recordings and other documents as well. Okay, and then the last thing here on the first bullet, my coalition counselor. Common App does have features to help students, but my coalition counselor seems to be much more available, where you can actually speak to somebody about your application and what you need to do. You can ask questions that are live. And so it does feel like a little bit more of just a little bit more available, a little bit more helpful. Okay. Now, the second bullet here, this is more for my underclassmen. Like the Common App where you can create a practice account before you switch to student account, you have this option to create My Story, which this is for students in 10th grade or lower, and it allows you to enter your information and gain knowledge about the application beforehand. So essentially, you are in a practice account. Okay. I went over this earlier. Activities, you must share at least 2 meaningful activities, but you can share up to 8. But the coalition really wants you to focus on kind of 2 primary activities. So you have the availability like Common App to share more, but you can see when you go in there that they really want you to share 2. And then, like I said earlier, Locker is where you can submit recordings. Okay, so that's the primary difference between Common App and Coalition, aside from the personal essay, which I'll go over in the next presentation. And the last step is you have independent applications. There are still many schools that have their own application built into their own website, do not use Common App or Coalition. And there are also many schools that allow you to do both Common App or their own application. And so the benefit here is if you choose the one that'll best suit your recommenders. So if you know that, again, you have 6 schools you're applying to, and all of them are in Common App, but one has the option to do an independent application, I would still go with the Common App for all of them. This allows all of your recommenders to submit in one place. They get one message that says, hey, Sarah Llewellyn requested a letter of recommendation from you. Please click this link to go and fill this out and submit your letter. And so it makes it much more user-friendly. It also allows you to collect all of the information in one place and know that it's all there, okay? The benefit here is that some schools will actually cut back on what you have to apply, what you have to include in your application, essentially. And that I've seen some schools where if you apply to their application directly, you might not have to write the personal essay. So you just kind of have to weigh what's most useful to you. In this case, if some of your schools are in Common App and there's an independent application, you're going to have to write the personal essay regardless. And so my suggestion would still be to go with Common App on all of the schools. Okay. Now, just a few notes about the applications themselves and the applying process, essentially. First step is interviewing and touring, okay? Many large universities like University of Delaware no longer offer in-person interviews. It's just too hard for them to maintain on a bigger scale, but there are many other websites to show interest. And what I mean by showing interest is what I said earlier. You basically are saying to that school, you are a top choice for me. I want to be there. I want to come to your school, and this is how I'm demonstrating that. And so you can visit the NACAC's website for more information on college fairs. And that's not just virtual ones. They also have in-person ones all over the country all the time. There is one coming up in August on the East Coast. You can tour the school in person if possible. That's my first suggestion, really, is to tour the school in person at different times. Go to their actual official tour, so you are signed up, so it's in your application, but then go back on campus and kind of check it out at a different time of day and kind of see if you can imagine yourself there, okay? It's not just about your application, it's about, do I want to be a student at this school? And then the last option is touring the school's website, especially they have an interactive website. There are so many schools now that allow you to kind of enter the process of touring the school from your own home, essentially. You can go there virtually. And that I would do that regardless of if you go to a college fair or not. I would actually still tour the school's website just so you know more information about the school before you apply. Okay. Now, if you get a chance to interview, and that could mean a couple of different things, either a school representative actually interviews you officially through Zoom, possibly like I'm presenting to you here, or in person. I would recommend you take it. Again, this is another part of who you are, showing who you are as a person, something else that will go into your application. And taking the interview also shows them that you really mean business about applying to their school. Okay. But you also might do an interview, just kind of an informal interview, if you attend a college fair. Years ago, when I lived in Boston and I was kind of working through the college admissions process and getting to know the process and working with a counselor on this, I actually attended college fairs as an alumni of University of Delaware, and I interviewed a few students, like again, informally, but that information is tracked down and put in your application. And so if you get a chance to interview, I highly recommend that you complete this prep sheet or some kind of prepared sheet ahead of time for yourself. So this is something that I developed a few years ago. Questions that are highly show up on interview questions for alumni asking. So these were questions I asked as an alumni, and interview questions from admission. So I would recommend that you have something prepared, even if you don't answer the questions. You still have something prepared. You know how you want to answer that question. You wouldn't hesitate too long to answer it, especially about reading. I found that in my years in doing the camp, a lot of students did not have that question about what they are currently reading or their favorite book or something that they just enjoy learning more about. And I would highly recommend that you come prepared with something like that. Okay, you don't want your answer to be, I don't have a favorite book, or I don't read, or I don't have a topic of interest. Pick something. Okay. And then the last thing, and this is anytime anyone is ever interviewing you for a job, for school, anything, they're going to tell you this: have a question prepared, at least one. I would have 1 to 2 questions prepared for the interviewer, because at the end of the interview, if it's a strong interview, they're going to ask you, do you have any questions for us? Okay. And I linked this article here that has a list of questions you could ask when you're touring a school or interviewing with a school. I would, again, highly recommend that you use this website to kind of find a question there. You don't want to ask necessarily about finances of the person in front of you, because they're there to gauge whether you'll be a good fit for the school. You want to ask about the community. You want to ask about the major, about the classrooms, something to do with the environment in itself, okay, and what it's like to be a student there. And if you happen to get an alumni interviewing you, ask them about their experience. If there was something that, if they had known this going in, maybe this would have made their experience a little bit more better, essentially. Okay, now we talked about the activities list a little bit earlier, but I do want to just remind you, prioritize your list. Okay, you only have so many options you can include on there, and this is what's going to show who you are as a person. Okay, you can estimate the hours. You're not going to have it down to exactly the right hour. So just do an estimate on that, because that's what they're asking for. If you're still in your junior year, I highly recommend you take a leadership role in at least one of your activities that will highly stand out. And you want to begin posting about your activities and communicating through school social media where applicable. So you want to make sure that you are out there, essentially, that you're showing your participation, whether that is your immersion experience going into the summer between your junior and senior year, or another activity that you highly participate in. Take on some kind of leadership role, step up to sign up to do something for the group, whatever it is. If you're about to begin your senior year, it's not too late to start accumulating activities. Okay, so don't stress too much about that. I've had students in camp over the years who have one activity and they're like, this is what I've spent all my time on. I don't have any other time because of my courses. So remember to play up your courses on that respect. Okay, make sure you list them all. This is kind of make you stand out. You can showcase another side of you in the essay. So don't talk about that activity that's on your list in the essay. And you could join something in your senior year. The application might be due before it happens. So let's say you intend to join something in the spring of your senior year, but the application is due in November. That's okay. Put it on there. You intend to do it. You're going to do it. If you're asked about it later, you did it. So include everything you can on your application. Okay. And for your personal essay, I would either highly recommend one of two things. I would choose a topic not related to that one big activity that you did. If you don't have many activities, I would choose something else to answer, like a time when you challenged a belief or an idea. Or I would pick the activity that best exemplifies who you are. If, let's say, you only had 3 activities, pick the one that best exemplifies you and then incorporate that into another story. So integrate that activity into a story answering one of the questions. Okay, for letters of recommendation, You want to make sure that when you're requesting your letters of recommendation, that you first decide, where is there a deficit in my application? So again, I have my course list, I have my activities list, I have my personal essay. What am I missing? And the recommenders can fill that in, okay? You want them to be as diverse as the essay is to the activities list, okay? If your essay is about a top activity, select a recommender from another activity to show how well-rounded you are. So in this case, if your essay is about your time playing lacrosse, and lacrosse is also at the top of your activities list in terms of importance and time commitment, but you're a member of the marching band, consider asking your band teacher or someone directly involved in the marching band to write you the letter instead. That way it shows your second choice, okay? Similarly, if you are pursuing a specific program in college, the first teacher recommender should be a pathway teacher so that they can see, they can demonstrate to this college how well you'll perform in this program, okay? Because you're not just getting accepted to a college, it's also to the major that you want to be in, okay? And if that's not an option, meaning they need 2 academic teachers, not a pathway teacher first, you can still add a third recommender. So you could pick your English teacher, your science teacher, and your pathway teacher, okay? And maybe you completed an immersion experience. Why not choose your industry partner? So let's say you have to choose an English teacher and a science teacher. Maybe the third person is not the pathway teacher, but your industry partner who oversaw your work in the immersion experience for your capstone project, okay? When you ask them for a letter of recommendation, give them as much information as possible. Okay, what are you majoring in? What do you intend to do after college with that? What have you done up until this point that will help you get into that major and achieve that goal after college? Okay, and the big thing I do want to point out 2 things that in my reading for this camp and for this presentation, 2 big things. One, if a school does not require a letter, don't submit one. It means they don't need it. It's more things in your application that's going to take away from the other things that they actually do want to see. And many schools are kind of struggling to get through all the applications that are coming through each year. And 2, still send a thank you note. Send a thank you note to your recommender through a message, through a handwritten note, something, even a conversation. Go and see them and say, I really appreciate you applying. Let them know about the process. You got into your school, they helped you write a recommendation, let them know. Okay, it's always nice to hear that. And that person will still continue to be on your side as you move forward into college. So write the thank you note. Okay. And my second to last point here is social media presence. This is something that's very underrated when applying. Okay. The number of schools who utilize a student social media in their application process has increased. Right. Not vastly. The numbers are still lower, but it has increased. And that actually is good news for you. Okay. It can help your application. So first step is don't adjust your social media to attract colleges. Okay. Many are still not using it. So it's going to be kind of a waste of your time to then go and build out all of the social media to attract them. Okay. But consider what you're sharing now. Okay. Go back over your social media. Okay. Understand your privacy settings, understand who can see your applications if you want them to or not. Okay. Look at the pictures you have, look at the hashtags you've used, look at who has shared photos of you. Okay. Check out your entire profile. I'm not saying that you need to build it to attract the school. Okay. But build it in a way that if your school did look at this, would it attract them to you? Okay. And then the other thing I'm going to include is you can start, if you want to actually start attracting the school to your activities, to the things that you participate in, like volunteerism, traveling, etc., use hashtags to attract them. Okay. I linked this 15 things colleges will look for in your social media account because I found this very useful myself. And last, the due dates. Understanding the due dates. So the thing you want to consider here is this: early action versus early decision, early action, early decision versus regular decision, and rolling admissions. What do these mean? Early action is non-binding. It means you were simply applying early to this college and therefore no earlier if you were accepted. Early decision is binding, meaning that you must withdraw all other applications and not apply anywhere else if you are accepted to this school through early decision. Okay, not before, but if you are accepted through early decision, that's it. All other applications are gone. The main exception to this is if your financial package does not provide you with enough to attend the school, or your financial situation changes in the process of you applying early decision, then you are able to withdraw your application. Early action versus early decision, or that's early action versus early decision, sorry. Early action early decision versus regular decision, how do I decide? Do I want to apply early? Well, the easiest way is I only would apply early to your top school. Okay. Applicants who apply early are identifying that that school is their top pick. If you apply early and are not accepted, then you move to the regular decision pool of candidates. So it's not like your application doesn't exist, it just moves into the regular pool. Applying early indicates that your application meets most of the school's primary criteria for attending, and you are confident that you will get into your program. Regular decision, however, does not mean you will miss out on the top school, especially if you need more time to apply, collect required materials, or retake a test like the SAT or ACT. So regular decision doesn't say to the school, I didn't really want to come here, so here's my application. It just says you needed more time, and that's okay. It's better to take more time, get your personal essay down right, get your whole application done, collect all your letters of recommendation, retake that test, and make sure your application is as good as you want it to be before you apply. And then last, rolling admissions. This sounds like an appealing option to many, but I do want to make sure you are aware that once an application opens to at a school, if they say they're rolling admissions, they begin accepting students at that time. And if their program only takes so many students, then if you apply months into the rolling admission after the application is open, let's say it's August 1st, like most schools, there might not be space in that program anymore. So just be wary of that. That rolling admissions does mean that they can accept you year round, but once their application opens, pay attention to their programs and how many students their programs each take. So if it's, let's say, an engineering program, an engineering major, okay, and it's rolling admissions for that school, the engineering program is going to fill up, okay? And people who are applying to a program like that highly competitive program are going to be applying early, okay? So just make sure you don't let the rolling admissions kind of trick you into this false sense of security that you can apply anytime, okay? If you are in a competitive major, you still want to apply as early as you possibly can, okay? Or at least speak to admissions about that. Okay, thank you for participating in this presentation on the college application. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to email me. My information will be shared on this presentation on the website. And the first step is, though, I would highly recommend you reach out to your college and career readiness counselor at your school and or your school counselor to answer specific questions. I'm happy to help with the process, but they are always your best resource in the college application process, as there are many nuances to the process that they go over every year, and they would know you as a student and can best answer you. Thank you.